Welcome back. For anybody joining us for the final installment of the fifth book, I will do a bit of a recap. So far, the Animorphs have somewhat reluctantly agreed to help their new Andalite friend, Aximili Escarouth Isthil, to steal a bug fighter from the Yeerks in an attempt to get home. The way he plans to do that is by imitating a Yeerk distress beacon to summon a bug fighter, and then the Animorphs in their battle morphs are going to attack the crew of the bug fighter so that Axe can steal it. So that's where we left off last week. Was they had gone to a quarry as a somewhat remote and isolated site where humans wouldn't be around, and Axe has activated his distress beacon, which has lured a bug fighter. And as they had initially expected, there's one Hork-Bajir crew member and a Taxon pilot, which the Animorphs would be able to dispatch fairly handily, but they've attracted more than that. Part of the plan was they didn't think that Visser 3 was going to be available this week because they had found notes in Chapman's office that he was entertaining a rather important visitor. Visser 1 is visiting planet Earth this week, so they thought that Visser 3 was going to be kind of busy with that delegation. But no, when they activated their imitated distress beacon, they have also called down the Blade ship. Because this is the final installment of an Animorphs book, so Visser 3 has to be there. Them's the rules. Chapter 19. He looked so much like Axe, so much like Prince Elfangor, and yet so totally different. The difference wasn't something you saw, it was something you felt. A shadow on your soul, a darkness that blotted out the light of the sun. Evil, destruction. Not the impersonal program destructiveness of the ants. This was warm-blooded, deliberate evil. His body was Andalite. He was the only Andalite controller in existence. The only Yeerk ever to infest an Andalite body. The only Yeerk with the Andalite power to morph. Visser 3. Visser 3, who had murdered the Andalite Prince Elfangor while we cowered in terror. Visser 3, who even the Hork-Bajir and Taxon feared. Well, well, he said, thought-speaking to us. I have you at last, my brave Andalite bandits. Fools. Do you think we never change our frequencies? Yeerk, Axe said in a silent voice loaded with hatred. Visser 3's main eyes focused in on Axe. A little one, he said, surprised. Are the Andalites now reduced to using their children to fight? Axe started to say something, but Jake snapped, Shut up, Axe. None of us communicates with him. Give him nothing. Axe fell silent, but he was practically vibrating with rage and hatred for the Yeerk Visser. It wasn't surprising. Visser 3 had killed his brother. But Jake was right. We couldn't get into a conversation with Visser 3. The rest of us still wanted to hide the fact that we were humans, not Andalites. We could too easily slip up and reveal the truth. Visser 3 seemed to be enjoying his big moment. What a colorful assortment of morphs, he said. Earth has such wonderful animals, don't you agree? When we enslaved the humans and when we have enslaved the humans and made this planet over in our image, we will have to be sure to keep some of these forms alive. It would be entertaining to try to morph some of these myself. None of us said anything. At least, not anything that was human. Jake did snarl, drawing his tiger lips back over his teeth. Especially you, Visser 3 said to Jake. That is a beautiful, deadly animal. I approve. In, in fact, I was going to demand you demorph, but I have a better idea. You see, we have a guest aboard the mothership. It will be entertaining to show you to Visser 1 as you are. I was sick with dread and fear, but not so afraid that I didn't notice a sneer in Visser 3's tone when he said Visser 1. Did you catch that? Did you catch that? Jake asked us in the thought speak version of a whisper. Yeah, Visser 3 doesn't like Visser 1. Visser 3 must have given some signal, because at this moment the blade ship appeared overhead, shimmering into view as it decloaked. The blade ship is far larger than the bug fighters, and very different. It is jet black. It's built like some kind of battle axe from the Middle Ages, It's built like some kind of battle axe from the Middle Ages, with two curved axe head wings and a long diamond-pointed handle aimed forward. We're better off making a run for it, Rachel said. It would be suicide, I said. As long as we're alive, there's hope. Yeah, Visser 3 is taking us to the Yerk mothership to show off for his boss. Some hope. But Rachel did nothing, and I did nothing, and we all just stood there under the watchful eyes of 100 Hork-Bajir. They must have landed the blade ship out of sight while we were busy watching the one bug fighter. Oh, sorry. The rest must have landed out of sight while we were busy watching the one bug fighter. Axe had used the wrong frequency. The Yerks had figured out that we were laying a trap, and our trap had become Visser 3's trap for us. A couple of dozen of the Hork-Bajir leapt down from the high walls of the quarry and surrounded us. They kept their Dracon beams leveled at us as the blade ship landed on the quarry floor. Go, obey. Farogos hey, there, we're lit. One of the Hork-Bajir said in the strange mixture of English and their own language that they use. He pointed to the blade ship. A door had opened in the side. I can't fit in there, Rachel said. But as she approached the door widened to her size. It stretched and grew as if the metal skin of the blade ship were alive. What a pathetic little crew we were, trooping inside the blade ship, weak and pathetic and stupid to imagine that we could have ever resisted the Yerks. Visser 3 was right. We were fools. This wasn't even my fight, I thought. Not really. This wasn't my time to die. I guess I wanted to feel angry, but what I felt was numb as I trooped into the blade ship with the others. You know, like I wasn't really there, almost. I was past feeling anything, I guess. I just kept thinking, it's happening. It's finally really happening. The next day was Sunday. My dad would go to my mom's grave, alone. It would be a while before he would admit that I, too, was gone. Just like when my mom died. There would never be a body. Just like my mom. Chapter 20. This is not looking good, I said. I couldn't take the silence anymore. No, it isn't. But we're not dead yet, Jake answered. Yet? Why doesn't that make me happy? I asked. I looked around at the others, all crammed into a windowless steel cube. Black, dimly lit steel walls on all 6 sides. No door. It was like a coffin. We look like some kind of circus, I said. An elephant, a tiger, a gorilla, a wolf, and a freak of nature. That got some half-hearted laughs from the others. I don't know why I was making jokes. I guess that's just the way I am. When bad things happen, I tell jokes. But inside, I felt sick, like I had swallowed broken glass. Maybe we should just demorph, Cassie said. Maybe if they realize we aren't Andalites, they'll let us go? She knew that was dumb, of course, but when you're scared, you start grabbing at anything. You want to believe there's a way out. The truth was, there were exactly 2 possibilities. Visser 3 would kill us, or Visser 3 would turn us into controllers. He would infest us with a Yeerk. We should stay an animal morph, Jake said. I mean, the thing is, if Visser 3 learns we are human, he may go after our families next. He may figure we told them something. Prince Jake is right, Axe said. The Yeerks will not want to take any chances that other humans may know of them. It was true. I knew it was true. I guess I'd known it all along, but hearing it said, it made me want to crawl into a corner. My dad, Cassie's parents, Rachel's mom and her sisters, Jake's parents, maybe even Jake's brother, Tom, although he was one of them. Their lives were at risk too. Suddenly, a window opened in one of the walls. It just grew the same way the door had before, like the steel was alive. It formed a round porthole, large enough for all of us to see, even Rachel, who could only turn her massive head enough to look with one eye. I gasped. Below us, blue and white and so beautiful it brought tears to your eyes, was Earth. Sun sparkled off the ocean, clouds swirled over the Gulf of Mexico. A big spiral, maybe a hurricane. Look, Cassie said simply. We looked through the eyes of the animals of Earth. We looked through the eyes of the animals of Earth, but with the minds of human beings. We looked down at our planet. Our planet. For now, at least. For a little while longer. Then something different came into view as the blade ship rotated away from Earth. This is why the Yeerks opened a window, Axe said. This is what they wanted us to see, so that we would despair. The mothership. It was a gigantic, three-legged insect. The center was a single bloated sphere. The sphere was flatter on the bottom. The sphere was flatter on the bottom, and from the bottom hung a weird, mismatched series of tendrils, like the tendrils of a jellyfish. Each one must have been a quarter-mile long. Around the sphere were 3 legs, bent up, then back down, exactly like a spider's legs. The legs are the engines, Axe explained. The legs are the engines. The tendrils hanging down below the belly are weapons and sensors and energy collectors. That is also where the shipboard Kendrona is. The Yeerks must bathe in the Yeerk pool every 3 days to absorb Kendrona rays. There must be one on the planet below, too. Yeah, we know, I said. Your brother told us, for all the good it did us. It just hung in orbit, like a predator gazing down hungrily at blue Earth below. I can't believe people on Earth don't see this on radar, Rachel said. I mean, it's huge. It's a city. It is shielded, Axe said simply. It cannot be seen by radar, and it would normally be invisible to us. Visser 3 is showing it to us, to terrify us. Visser 3 is showing it to us, to terrify us. He's doing a good job, I said. I've never been in space before, Cassie said. I always wished I could. I always wanted to see Earth, all in one piece like that. It is a lovely planet, Axe said gently. Not so different from mine, except that we have less ocean and more grassland. I am sorry I brought you all to this. This is my fault. I wanted to yell, yes, it is your fault. But Cassie said what we all knew in our hearts. Axe, you're only here because your people wanted to protect us. Your brother and a lot of Andalites died trying to save us. Nothing is your fault. It was true, but sometimes when everything hits the fan, you don't want the truth. You just want somebody to blame. One too many missions, I muttered. This was going to be like my One too many missions, I muttered. This one was going to be my last one. And now, well, this one is going to be my last one. I could see an opening in the side of the Yeerk mothership, a docking port. As I watched, a pair of quick bug fighters flew in, dwarfed by the size of the opening. A minute later, we entered the docking port and were suddenly bathed in deep red light. Through the window, we could see the Yerk crewmen, Hork-Bajir, and Taxon, and 2 or 3 other alien species in simple red or dark brown uniforms. And there were humans too. My first reaction was hope. Humans! But then I realized the truth. No, human controllers. Yerks. No different than the Hork-Bajir. There was a slight shudder as the blade ship came to a halt. Axe, Jake asked, what's our morph time? We have been in morph for 40% of allowable time. I did the math. So we've used up 48 minutes, leaving what, 72 minutes? Yeah, Tobias confirmed. I don't think I had realized that Tobias boarded the blade ship with them. Although I do recall he did say when I was reading last week, that he didn't think he would be able to get away without being shot down by Dracon beams. Yeah, Tobias confirmed. Not a lot of time for you guys. Maybe Rachel is right. Maybe we should just go out in a blaze of glory. Attack as soon as they open the door. At least we can let them know we were here. I saw Jake extend his claws, as if he were thinking about using them. He glanced at where the door had once been, like he was measuring the distance. I knew that he was listening to the tiger in his head. Then he seemed to relax. No, he said. We have to have hope. Cassie sidled up next to him and nuzzled him with her wolf's muzzle. I guess it should have been funny, the wolf and the tiger sharing a tender moment, but all it did was make me a little jealous. They had each other. We gave them a pretty good fight, didn't we? I said. Our little circus? We did some damage to them. Yes, we did, Rachel agreed. Axe hesitated, then continued. Do humans fear death? Yeah, we're not crazy about death, I answered. How about Andalites? We are also not crazy about it. Through the window, I could see a lot of Hork-Bajir and Taxon and humans running around, racing to get somewhere. They were lining up, and now, I noticed, there were distinct kinds of uniforms. One red and black, the other gold and black. The brown uniforms were all around the edges, like they were less important. Suddenly, without warning, the window stretched open into a large arched doorway. Fetid air rushed in, smelling of oil and chemicals and something else. A ramp rose up from the steel floor outside to meet us. We were standing there like a display at the top of the ramp. All around, filling this side of the docking bay, were uniformed Hork-Bajir, Taxon, and humans. Most were in red and black, perhaps 200 creatures, standing in stiff rows, arranged by species. About a quarter of the total were in gold and black. There were more humans in this group, but also some unusually massive Hork-Bajir. Jake, I have a feeling. I don't think the reds like the golds. Yeah. Jake, I have a feeling. I don't think the reds like the golds. I think they are the troops of 2 different Vissers, Axe said. I think I overheard my brother talk about that. Each Visser has his own private army in their own uniforms. Swell. I wonder which group gets to have us, I said. Far at the back of the rows of alien troops, there was a movement, a party of creatures walking to the front. Visser 3 was at the center. Visser 3 was at the center, followed by 2 big Hork-Bajir in red. And just to his left was a human woman with dark hair and very dark eyes. That was when I stopped breathing, because I knew Even before I could see her face clearly, I knew. They marched up to the bottom of the ramp. A dozen soldiers leveled Dracon beams at us, just in case we wanted any trouble. Then, in thought speak that all could hear, Visser 3 turned to the woman beside him. You see, Visser 1, I have taken the Andalite bandits. The crisis is over. Your trip here is wasted, and you can return to the homeworld. Visser 1 nodded. She looked up at us with those dark brown human eyes. Eyes I knew, eyes I remembered. The same eyes that watched me sleep every night from the frame picture beside my bed. My mother, Visser 1. Chapter 21. I sat down, very suddenly. I'm sure it looked funny. A big, hairy gorilla simply falling down. I would have laughed if I'd seen it. My mother, not dead, alive. I wanted to yell, Mom, Mom, it's me, Marco. But Jake was in my head, a loud, urgent whisper. Marco, don't say anything, don't do anything. Do you hear me? So I wasn't just imagining it. Jake had recognized her too. Marco, listen to me, man. You have to hold it together. My mother, alive. My mom. Come on, Marco. Stand up. Don't make them suspicious. He was speaking just to me. I could hear Jake. I could. But it seemed to come from far off. He didn't understand. It was my mom. My mom. Marco, that is not your mother. Not anymore. That is not her. Jake? It's my mom. Look, it's her. No, it isn't, Marco. Not anymore. They have her. She's one of them. One of them. Why, Visser 1, Visser 3 sneered. You seem to have frightened the humanoid one. It's called a gorilla, Visser 1 said coldly. If you're going to be in charge of Earth, Visser 3, you should at least learn something about the planet. And take a human host body like you did? No, I think not. Human bodies are weak. I much prefer this Andalite host. My mother looked at him and curled her lip. I took a human host and learned about the planet and the humans, and because of that, I was able to begin the invasion that you have now endangered with your criminal incompetence. Visser 3's deadly Andalite tail twitched, as if he was going to stab my mom. Visser 1. The red troops tensed up. The red troops tensed up, and the gold troops let their hands edge toward their weapons. Okay, Rachel said. I think we were right. These two definitely don't like each other. She didn't know, I realized slowly. Rachel didn't know, because she had never met my mother. Neither had Cassie, or Tobias. And Jake had kept his thought speech private. Visser 3 slowly relaxed. You would like to provoke me, Visser 1, he said. You would like to provoke me, Visser 1, but the fact is that I destroyed the Andalite force. I shot down their dome ship. I killed Prince Elfangor myself and heard his dying screams. And now, I have eliminated this last pathetic rabble of Andalites. My mom, Visser 1, just smiled. You want to be Visser 1? You think you can take my title? We shall see. The Council of 13 does not like Vissers who make mistakes, and you have made mistakes. Be careful of your own ambition. She snapped her fingers, and every one of the soldiers in gold turned. Then she walked away, followed by her gold-uniformed troops. That was not my mother. At least, not... That was not my mother. At least, not the creature who called itself Visser 1. Visser 1 was the yerk inside my mother's brain. But the sickening thing is, you see, that the host mind is still alive. It is still aware. Somewhere inside that head, behind those painfully familiar eyes, my mother still lived. Take it easy, Marco, Jake said. I know how it is. I know how much you want to do something. But now is not the time. They'd cut us down before we got 2 steps. I know, I said dully. I hated myself for not trying, but I knew there was nothing I could do. I had to hide inside my morph. Never let my mother know it was me. Never let her know. Slowly, heavily, I stood up. I felt weak, a very strange feeling for a gorilla. I think right then, if I had been in any other morph, I would have just surrendered and let the animal mind take over. Let instinct rule and wash away my human emotion. But the gorilla was too much like a human. Its instincts were gentle. Like humans, it was a creature of emotion. It was a creature of emotion, and it could not protect me from the pain. Don't tell the others, Jake, I said. You're the only one who recognized her. Okay, Marco. You can't even tell Cassie, okay? It's okay, man. Sorry. It's okay, man. You are my oldest and best friend. You know that. No one will ever know this from me. Visitor 3 still stared at us. I think he wasn't sure what to do next. 6 Andalites, he said. 6 Andalite bodies that could be used by my most loyal lieutenants. Axe exploded. And then there would be others like you filth, other Andalite controllers, more unnatural abominations like your vile self. Visser 3 cocked his head thoughtfully. Why are you the only one who speaks? You're right, of course. You're right, of course. Why would I allow anyone else to acquire Andalite morphine powers? But you are a child. Why do the others remain silent? And why do you all still hide in your morphs? Curious. Very curious. He seemed to think it over for a minute. Would he realize the truth? Would he figure out that the reason we remained silent was so that he wouldn't guess that we were human? Would he figure out that's why we stayed in morph? He seemed to shrug. Take them back to a holding cell. Triple the guard. If there is the slightest trouble, kill them all. Chapter 22. They marched us down a hallway. Rachel, still in her huge elephant body, filled the hallway like our ant bodies had filled the tunnels in the sand. Tobias rode on my shoulder, unable to fly in the cramped space. The place we ended up was just like the bare black steel prison we'd been held in on the Blade ship, but this time no window appeared. There was dim light that seemed to radiate from the ceiling, but nothing else at all. I slumped down in a corner. What's our time looking like, Axe? Jake asked. You have only 30% of your time left. 36 minutes, Jake translated. 36 minutes and I'll spend the rest of my life as an elephant, Rachel said. Not that the rest of my life is likely to be much time. For a while, everyone talked about various plans for escape. It was all just talk. We knew we were trapped. We knew it was over. We were aboard the Yerk mothership. It was huge. If we had a week to learn our way around, we'd still be lost in its mazes. There were hundreds, probably thousands of armed Yerks. Hork-Bajir, Taxons, and a few other shapes we'd never seen before. And, of course, humans. Like my mother. My mother. Visser 1. Most powerful of the Vissers. When had it happened? Had the Yerks taken her much earlier? Had she already been a controller for those last years when she was with us? When she had come to my bedroom to say goodnight, had that been a Yerk slug, just playing a part, like an actor? When I tried to fake sick to get out of school, had it been a Yerk who saw through my story and kidded and joked me into admitting it? Was it a yerk handing out the presents on Christmas morning? A yerk singing in the church choir? A yerk pulling the puppet strings of my mother's body when she dragged me through J.C. Penney's and made me buy school clothes I didn't really like? Was it a yerk I used to find making out with my dad like a teenager when they didn't think I was home? All of it an act? All of it fake? For how many years? How much of what I thought was my mother had been one of them? One thing was for sure. Her death had been faked. The so-called drowning accident. No body recovered. But the body had been recovered, hadn't it? The Yerk's mission had been accomplished. The Yerk's mission had been accomplished. The invasion of Earth had been started. Visser 1 was leaving Earth in the hands of Visser 3, and so she had. Sorry. Visser 3 was leaving Earth in the hands of Visser 3, and so she had to disappear and not leave anyone asking questions. There has to be something we can do, Rachel was saying. Axe said, "My people have a saying. Grace is the acceptance of the inevitable." Yeah, I said suddenly. Well, I don't accept. That's what they want. They want the entire human race to lie down and accept the inevitable. Jake turned his big yellow tiger eyes on me. I saw Tobias's eternally fierce glare. I stood up. I have a saying for you, Axe. I got it from a fortune cookie. Fall down 7 times, get up 8. You know what that means? That means you don't ever just lie there. You always get up. You always come back for more. You never surrender. Maybe you die, but you never surrender. They were all looking at me now, through the eyes of a wolf and a hawk and the big, sad eyes of an elephant. Ants, I said. We can morph to ants again. Cassie was shocked. You're saying that? You? I thought you hated those ant morphs as much as I did. I did, but it may work. We morph to ants. We morph to ants, and maybe there's a crack in here somewhere. We escape into the walls and the machines. We can hide, then morph into something more dangerous, attack, and then disappear again. Maybe even find a way to destroy their Kandrona. That's nuts, Rachel said. I like it. At least we can hurt them a little bit before they catch up with us, Jake agreed cautiously. Except for Tobias. You have to do what's right for the group, Tobias said. I'll have to take my chances. Whatever happens, I'd feel better knowing you guys were still out there somewhere, making trouble for the Yerks. It may work, Axe said. The Yerks are not very... Pardon me. It may work, Axe said. The Yerks are not very familiar with morphing, except for Visser 3. They may not expect an insect morph. All right then, Jake said. The door opened. It simply appeared, silently, in the wall. Standing there were 3 Hork-Bajir. They were wearing gold uniforms. Standing there were 3 Hork-Bajir. They were wearing gold uniforms. Lying on the floor were 4 other Hork-Bajir. They were each uniformed in red. They were either dead or unconscious. Don't move, Jake snapped as he saw Rachel and me tensing up for a charge. The lead Hork-Bajir, a huge creature maybe 8 feet tall, with head blades that were more than a foot long, eyed us. He spoke. It was surprising because he did not speak in the usual strange mishmash of languages the Hork-Bajir used. This one sounded like he'd been Harvard educated. This hallway goes on in that direction for 100 feet. He pointed to his left. Then comes to a guard station, where there will be 2 Hork-Bajir and a Taxon. From there, 4 hallways. Take the one furthest to your left. Follow it to a drop shaft. Take the drop shaft down 15 decks. Directly ahead, you will see escape pods. He looked at Rachel. You are too large in that morph to fit in the escape pod. You will need to demorph when you get there. The pod is programmed to return you to the planet in the same area where you were seized. The pod will then self-destruct. Do you understand? We all just stared. It's a trap, Tobias said. No, we're already trapped. They could kill us any time, I said. Marco's right, Jake said. Why let us escape if they want to kill us? Sorry. This is one of Visser 1's soldiers, Axe pointed out. It would be very embarrassing for Visser 3 if his prisoners should happen to escape. No? Politics, Cassie said with a laugh. It's about politics. Visser 1 is making Visser 3 look bad. If we escape, it will be blamed on Visser 3. You will still have to deal with any of Visser 3's troops you encounter between here and the escape pod, the gold-clad Hork-Bajir said. Leave. Now. Axe? Jake asked. Only 15% of your morph time is left. And that's about 18 minutes. Let's do it. Visser 1's troops turned and marched away. I'll go in front, Rachel said. Okay, and let's move, Jake said. Rachel squeezed her massive tonnage into the hallway. All right, now let's see who wants to try and stop me. Chapter 23. Womp, 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 womp. Rachel made the steel floor vibrate with each massive step. Her leathery sides scraped the corridor walls so that I could only catch occasional glimpses past her. The hallway was empty until we reached the Hork-Bajir state. That's not what that says. The hallway was empty until we reached the guard station, just as the Hork-Bajir had said. Rachel didn't even slow down. Womp, 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 womp. I saw a flash of a taxon, foolishly running as if to cut her off. A few seconds later, I had to jump over the crushed remnants of the big centipede. Look out! Hork-Bajir! Cassie yelled. He exploded out of a side corridor, a red uniformed Hork-Bajir. Swoosh! A razor-bladed arm sliced the air inches in front of my face. More coming, Tobias warned. Both directions, all of them in red. I can't turn around, Rachel moaned. She was too big, too tight a fit in the corridors to turn and help. As half a dozen Hork-Bajir in Visser 3's livery. Pardon me. Some of these words just don't feel like they go together. As half a dozen Hork-Bajir in Visser 3's livery came screaming onto the scene. I knew it couldn't be that easy, I said. Battle, Axe said, sounding like he was announcing a party. I felt the same way, though. I was ready. I was mad, and I was tired of feeling helpless. The closest Hork-Bajir swung at me again and sliced a 6-inch long cut in the matted fur of my huge shoulders. That was all it took. Like I said, gorillas are peaceful, almost gentle creatures, but don't go making one angry. Especially not when a boy who wants very badly to hurt some yerks is sharing space in the gorilla's head. Gorilla noises, I cried and swung a fist the size of a cinder block into the stomach of the Hork-Bajir. I gave it all I had. I put every ounce of the gorilla's muscle into that blow. The Hork-Bajir was lifted clear up off the deck. His head slammed to the ceiling. He was down and out of the game. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw another Hork-Bajir leap at Axe. The Andalite's tail flashed forward so fast you didn't actually see it move. The Hork-Bajir staggered back, minus one arm. Good one, Axe. You as well, huh? I decided right then I kind of liked Axe. Rachel, Jake yelled. Keep moving. Left tunnel. Look for a drop shaft, whatever that is. The longer we stay here, the more of these guys are going to show up. Just then, right on cue, 2 more Hork-Bajir came up from behind us. You guys move, I'll deal with them, Jake said. The Hork-Bajir rushed us. Jake let loose with a roar. Jake let loose with a roar that must have Jake let loose with a roar that must have been heard from one end of the mothership to the other. It even scared me, and it sure made the Hork-Bajir hesitate. He was on them while they were still thinking about what to do next. Hork-Bajir are very fast, but so are tigers. One Hork-Bajir was down, with Jake sinking his fangs into the snake-like neck. The other Hork-Bajir looked around and made sure that nobody could see him, and then he decided to live. And then he decided he'd like to live and put some distance between himself and the tiger. Jake backed away, but kept his face turned to the Hork-Bajir behind us. We trotted as fast as we could down the hallway, now a scene of devastation. It was like the ant tunnels. We could only try to escape. The longer we tried to fight, the more the odds would turn against us. Suddenly, "Ah! Rachel?" I heard Tobias cry. "It's okay. I found the drop shaft. I am dropping." "What is it?" I asked. "An elevator without a floor," Rachel answered. Then I was there at the edge of a long shaft that went down and down, maybe forever. Rachel already looked small, which was not easy for her to do. "He said to stop after 15 levels," I reminded her. "Yeah? And how do I do that?" "Think the number. It hears speech and Pardon me, my eyeballs are really wild tonight. "Think the number. It hears speech and understands simple thought speak commands," Axe instructed, then added, "At least that is how it works on our ships." "I'm slowing down. Cool." "More Hork-Bajir back here, and some of those other ones, the little wrinkled ones," Cassie yelled. "They're coming fast." "Here goes nothing," I said. I took a look down the drop shaft and jumped off into empty space. You know, if it hadn't been for the fact that I was just a few minutes away from being trapped forever in a morph, and if there weren't a dozen or so walking salad shooters after me, it would have been fun. I fell, but not too fast. 15 levels, I thought, as floors zipped past me. 12 levels down, I plummeted past a human controller who was getting ready to step into the drop shaft. He had a very human look of total amazement on his face. Possibly because while standing there, he'd seen a flying elephant, followed by a gorilla, a wolf, an andalite, and a tiger. "Hork-Bajir, coming fast," Tobias warned. I looked up the shaft. A big Hork-Bajir warrior was gaining on us, but there was nothing I could do until he reached us. "He's mine," Tobias said. He flared his wings, flapped hard, and he flapped his wings hard and was shooting back up the drop shaft toward the falling Hork-Bajir. Tobias's talons came forward, outstretched, and slashed the alien's eyes. The Hork-Bajir clutched at his face. I guess he was too distracted to think about what floor he was heading to. He shot past us as we slowed and stepped onto the 15th level. Hard floor under my feet again. A very good feeling. "Rachel, you have to demorph," I reminded her. "Already working on it," she said. She was shrinking even as she lumbered along. The escape pods! Ahead! There! Axe cried. They were only a dozen feet from us. A few seconds more, and we would make it. Rachel stumbled. She was half human, half elephant, a nightmare of pink and gray, with huge ears and human hair and fat arms and legs that had no feet. I, re- I reached down and swept her up with my powerful arms. She was still large, maybe 300 pounds, but not too much for me to carry. We reached the door of the escape pod. It closed behind us as we wedged our oversized bodies inside. Axe, time, Jake yelled. 5% of the time remains. 6 minutes, morph out. There was a surge as the escape pod ejected from the underside of the Yerk ship. My dense black fur was already starting to disappear by the time the pod rotated. I could see Earth below. Earth. And as the tiny ship turned, I could see the Yerk mothership. It was kind of a joke now, I thought. The Yerk mothership, my mother on the the Yerk mothership, my mother on the Yerk mothership. Haha. Before I became fully human again, before I lost the ability to thought speak and had to return to words spoken out loud, I said, Jake? Yeah, Marco? No one ever finds out. No one can ever know. Okay, Marco, he said. My mother died 2 years ago tomorrow. That's how it will be, my friend. Yeah, but someday? Someday, somehow, in some way that I could not foresee, we would win this battle. Humans and Andalites together would defeat the Yerks, and we would free all of their slaves. All of them. Someday, I whispered again. Someday, Marco, Jake said. Chapter 24. I guess there's no such thing as a nice graveyard, but the place where my mom is remembered is as nice as it can be. The grass is green, there's a tree nearby, it's always very quiet. You can smell flowers. I hate going there. My dad stood for a long time, looking down at the white marble headstone. It has my mom's name. The day she was born, the day she died. And a message that says, no wife, no mother was ever more loved or more deeply missed. My dad and I stood a few feet apart. We didn't say anything. We both just cried. You probably wouldn't think I was the kind of guy who would cry. Mostly, I don't. Mostly, I make jokes about things. It's better to laugh than to cry, don't you think? I do. Even when the world is scary and sad, especially when the world is scary and sad, that's when you need to laugh. 2 years, my dad said. It surprised me. Yeah, I said. 2 years. He took a deep breath, like it was hard for him to breathe. I I look, Marco, I've been thinking. Yes? I haven't been a very good father to you. It wasn't a question, so I didn't say anything. Your mom? He had to stop for a moment to get his voice under control. Your mom would not be happy about the way I've been these last 2 years. What could I say? I decided to say nothing. Anyway, I talked to Jerry the other day. Jerry was his old boss, back when he had a regular job. My dad shrugged. I guess we have to live, huh? I mean, we can't, you know. Another heavy breath. Your mom wouldn't want us to give up, would she? Anyway, I'm going in Monday to talk to Jerry about getting back to work. See if I still remember how to even turn on a computer. It was a big thing, a big decision. I guess I guess what I should have done was run over to give him a hug and tell him I was proud of him. I was proud of him, but that's not me. Hmm. Oh, Dad, you could never figure computers out. especially games. He stared at me with the blank eyes I had seen for the last 2 years. Then, suddenly, he laughed. You punk kid, I've forgotten more about computers than you'll ever know. Or sorry, than you ever knew. Oh, right. So why did I always kick your butt whenever we played Doom? I let you win. I made an extremely rude noise. Yeah? Yeah? How about if we just go home and play a video game so I can show you how totally wrong you are? I couldn't stop him from giving me a hug. Sorry, I couldn't stop him from giving me a hug. I guess I didn't mind all that much. We walked away from my mother's gravestone, the the stone that marked the death of a woman who was not dead. I raised my eyes up to the sky, the blue sky of Earth, my home. She was probably gone from the mothership now, off to some other corner of the galaxy. But wherever she was, no matter how far, I would find her someday. And that is the end of the 5th book in the Animorphs series, and I think perhaps an elucidating bit about millennial popular culture and how we ended up with the sense of humor we did. I hope that made some sense to somebody listening, but I think there's definitely something about the importance of humor in the face of everything. And I hope you have a good week, and I hope to see you next week.